Hey everybody! So for today's video I'm going to do sort of a beginner's tutorial for Blender, and I'm going to model a pipes of pan. Should be fun. Going to use some pretty basic stuff. Should be a lot of fun actually. And well, after we're done we'll have a prop that we can use in other scenes. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so when you start out in Blender, you start with this, this is what you'll see, and you start out with this default cube here in the middle. I'm just going to get rid of that, so I'm going to right click on it to make sure it's selected. In this case it is, but sometimes it may not be. For instance, I have the camera selected here, but I'm going to right click on the cube, select that. I'm going to tap the delete key, and then just sort of confirm that delete. And we're going to start by adding our first pipe for the pipes of pan. And for that, all we're really going to do is add a cylinder. So we'll go down here to the Add menu and up to Mesh and select a cylinder. And this will be the basis of our pipes for our pipes of pan. Now you'll notice it's not a hollow pipe though. It's got a cap on the end. And to get rid of that, we just go over here to this cap fill type, and we're going to select nothing. And now we have us a hollow pipe. Now the only thing is, though, it's just a thin, it's paper thin. We want to give this some volume. Actually, before we go any further, you'll notice that we kind of have this sort of perspective view. The inner circle looks smaller than the outer circle, and that's because it's further away. And I kind of don't like working this way when I'm modeling something. So I'm going to click the 5 key on the number pad, and this puts me in orthogonal mode. So now, if I look directly down the top, everything sort of lines up. I'm going to want it this way just to make editing a little easier for now. If you actually want to switch straight to the top camera, you can click the number 7 on your number pad, and it looks straight down your object. Okay, so now, as I was saying, we have this paper thin cylinder here. We want to give it some thickness. So to do that, let's go for this thing. First thing I need to do is go into edit mode. So I can click here, go to edit mode, and now you see I can edit actually the individual polygons that make up the pipe. So if I wanted to, I could select individual vertices and change the shape. That's not what I want to do right now, so I'm going to click Control Z to undo those two things I just did. And I want to make sure that the whole thing is selected. And to do that, I just tap the A key a couple of times in this case. The first time unselected everything, the next time selected everything. And then I'm going to go to Mesh, and we want to give this some depth, so I'm going to go to Faces and Solidify. And what this has done is it's added thickness to this pipe. Now right now the thickness is pretty small. Let's set that up to 0.1 and see how that looks. But actually that looks pretty good. Now we have something that our pipe has a little bit of thickness to it. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is kind of change the shape of this pipe so that it's taller. Because right now it's a little bit short to be a pipe in a pipes of pan. So I'm going to actually exit edit mode and go back into object mode. And then I'm going to click the S key to scale. Now this is what lets you change the size. But I want to change the whole size. I want to just change it in the Z direction, which if you see down here, you'll see a little Z. You have X, Y, Z, and the Z is pointing up, which means that direction is the up and down. So I'm going to hit S to scale again, and then I'm going to hit Z to lock it in the Z axis. And now as I pull away from the object, it grows just in the one direction, the Z direction. And then I left click to close out the thing. And now I have something that looks a little bit more like a pipe for a pipes of pan. Let's make that a little bit bigger. S and Z again, and then I'll make it a little bit longer. And now it's getting a little bit large to work with. I've kind of exceeded the size of my grid here. So I can just scale it all back down. I'm just going to click the S again, but instead of hitting Z, I'm just going to start pushing in towards the pipe. And now I can use my scroll wheel to scroll back in. And here we are with our first pipe for the pipes of pan. Okay, so now we have our first pipe. There's one more quick edit I want to do. This is just something, whenever you're modeling stuff, you tend to get really, really sharp edges, like you see here. And you don't want that. You want to be beveled just a little bit on everything. So I'm going to go into edit mode by hitting the tab key. And I want to be in edge select mode. In order to do that, you just click on one of this middle of these three boxes down here. And that'll put me in edge select mode. And I want to select all of these lines right here along the edge. And to do that, I'm just going to go select edge rings, and there I've selected those all. And then I'm just going to do a subdivide. To do that, I'm going to hit the W key and select subdivide smooth in this case, because we want to smooth this out. And we want there to be a couple of cuts. 2 is fine, I guess. Right. And that smooths out that edge just a little bit. So we want to do that also at the, now we see that we don't have that hard edge. It's kind of rounded just a bit. I'm going to go and do it at the bottom as well. Edges there. Select. In the select menu, edge rings. W. Subdivide smooth. And make that 2 cuts. And that rounds off that edge. So now we've got the 2 rounded edges. And we got our first pipe done for our pipe of pan. Okay, so now we're just going to go out of edit mode back into object mode. You can do that by selecting object mode here or just tapping the tab key. And then I'm going to hit the number 1 on the number pad. And that gives me a view straight from the side. And all I'm going to do to make the other pipes is duplicate this, this one pipe. Just go to object, duplicate objects. And then I right click. If you don't right click, it sort of goes speeding off in one direction. Here, let me try that again. So I'm going to go to object, duplicate object, and you can see here it moves with the mouse immediately. But I want to move it. I'm going to right click to drop to get it out of that move mode, and I'm going to move it using this arrow key because I want it to be exactly next to this one. And then I'm just going to hit S to scale and Z to lock it in the Z axis. Make this one just a little bit shorter. And the same thing. Instead of going to this menu every time to duplicate it, you can also just hit the Shift D key, which is what I think I'm going to do here. So Shift D, right click, and then move that over to the side. Scale, S and Z. Scale that in the Z direction a little bit. Same thing, Shift D, right click, drag to the side. Scale in the Z direction. And I can just keep doing this for all the pipes. However, one thing I'm going to want to do is go to each one and line them up at the top. So we're going to do Shift D to duplicate, right click, drag that one over to the side, S and Z, shrink that down a tiny bit. Let's move that up. And that'll be enough for our set of pipes here. The only other thing we might want to do is right now they're perfectly next to one another. Let's round this a little bit. So I'm going to tap the 7 key on the number pad and look at it straight from the top. And I can just kind of select it I'm right clicking on each one and just kind of rounding it off a bit. Give that just a bit of a nicer curve. And now I've got sort of my, let's maybe round that just a bit more. And so there I have my all 5 pipes for my pipes of pan. The other thing I'm going to do is right now, because of the way we duplicated them, they're each separate objects. And I just wanted this to be one object. Let's move that just a little bit there. So I'm just going to hold down the Shift key and right click on each one. And then go down here to Object and Join. And that turns it all into one object. So now if I go into edit mode, I can edit them all at the same time. Alright, one thing I'm going to do while I'm here is I'm going to give these a material group. Later on, and perhaps in another video, I'll show you how to actually give them texture. Because right now we're only defining shape. We're not actually defining the surface texture of these. But in order to make it easier in the future, I'm going to create a texture group. Here, let's expand this out a little bit here. Here we go. So while I have the object selected, I'm going to go to this thing that looks like a little sphere, which is our texture editor, or our material editor. And I'm going to create a new material, and it's called Material 1. We'll change that name to pipes. Over here, we're going to go into edit mode. And we are going to hit the A key to select everything. And we're going to assign all those vertices to that pipes material. Now, you're not going to see an immediate benefit to this, but later on I'll show you the benefit this is. So it'll create a group that we can texture in some other application, or even in this one. But for now, we'll just assign it a pipes material group. Okay, so now that we have our pipes, we're going to band them together. We add like a little strip of cloth or something that binds these together so that our pipe player doesn't just have them fall apart in his hands. So to do that, I'm just going to use a simple polygon, line of polygons. To start this, we're going to add a mesh, and we're going to pick a plane. Now the plane's kind of going in the wrong direction, so I'm going to tap 7 on the number pad. Actually, I'm going to tap 3 on the number pad to look at this from the side. Now we want to rotate this so that it's facing this way. There's an easier way to rotate it if you want to be really precise. Here, I'll undo that real quick. I can tap R, and I'm going to be rotating around the x-axis, so I'll tap the X key, and then I'll type in the number 90. And that gives us a perfect 90-degree rotation. And we'll move this out to the front of the pipes here. I'm going to tap the 1 key to look at it from the face on. Now you see this big old square here. I'm going to make it a bit smaller. I'm going to tap the S key to scale and scale that down by scrolling in, or by pushing the mouse in towards the center. And then I'll just move this over to about where we want our first band to be on the pipes. Right, and we're going to now expand this out to make sort of a binding band that goes across this set of pipes. Now to do this, I'm going to go into edit mode. And I'm currently in edge select mode, so I'm just going to select this edge right here to start with. And then to look straight at, well, what I'm going to do is something called extruding. What that does is it takes whatever you selected and kind of create new mesh from that, or new polygons. In this case, since I only have one edge selected, I'm going to only create one new polygon. And whenever I tap the E key, that's the extrude button, you'll see here I've created a new polygon. Now if I want to look at it straight down and line things up, I'm going to tap 7 on the number pad. And let's move that so that it's kind of wrapping around these pipes. And I can just keep clicking the extrude button. You know, it just looks like little black lines from this angle. But if we kind of rotate to the side, you'll see I've kind of created this, starting to create a ribbon here that goes around the pipes. We'll select this edge over here. Again, we're going to look at it from the top and just try to tap extrude a couple of times. Extrude. Right, and there's our band that goes around to bind these. Now it's a bit jagged right now, so what we'll do is we'll select everything by hitting the A key. And then I'm going to tap the W key and subdivide smooth. And we'll just do a number of cuts, 2. And it's not quite touching the edges there, so we might need to fix that. Shouldn't be too hard. Let's just take these 3 edges here. I'm going to hold down the shift key and select them all. And now I could just move this, but you see it kind of has these little 2 bumps here it creates. So I'm going to Control Z to undo that. And if you want to move things kind of together, you can tap this little thing that looks like a circle here, and we'll select connected. And now when I move that, kind of everything moves together. Now you see right now a little bit, the amount that's moving is too big. You see this white circle that's kind of appearing around everything? That's the sort of the zone that where all the vertices are affected. So if you want to make that smaller, you can tap the G key and use your scroll wheel to scroll in and make that circle a good deal smaller. And then left click. Now when I move this, I'm only moving the kind of vertices that are closer to the what's selected. So now I can kind of, it's a little bit like sculpting. I went a little too far on that last one. But if you want to be a perfectionist and get things really close to this, to our pipes, probably don't need to worry about it too much. Let's do just this one edge right over here. Because after all, we're not going to see this up that close. Okay, that looks pretty good right there. What I'm going to do real quick is go out of edit mode into object mode, and we're going to duplicate this as well. So I'm going to hit Shift D and right click, and then just drag this one down, and now we have our two bands to hold our pipes together. And that was actually pretty easy. So real quick, I'm going to select both of those, Shift and right click, so now I have both bands selected, object, join those so that they're one object. And for those, I am going to go, so we'll go into edit mode and we'll create a new material for that. We'll call that the bands. We'll select everything and assign that to our bands material. I'm going to go back into object mode, clicking the tab key, and select both the pipes and the bands. Object, we'll group that, or sorry, join that. And now we have, you'll notice that we have our two material groups appeared because now we have just one object with all those vertices. And with that, we've actually finished our pipes of pan, at least the shape of the object. Later on, we can go through and actually paint it. However, I'm just going to show you real quick because we created these material groups, and I'm going to export this so that and so we can see it in another application. But I'll show you the advantage of creating these material groups. Okay, so we're going to export this object now. For that, all you need to do is go up to the File menu here and Export, and we'll save it as a wavefront object. And I'm going to save this to the desktop for now. We'll call this Pipes, and then export the object. All right, so now I'm just going to jump over to another application and import this. I think I'll use Poser. Okay, so here we are in Poser, and I'm just going to delete the default character there, and we'll go and we'll add our pipes. We'll File, Import, Wavefront Object. We'll just take the defaults there, and we'll go up to our desktop, select those pipes, and give those a quick movement in the Y direction so that we can see them all. And here's our pipes, and you'll notice they're all gray because we never defined any kind of textures or surface features for them. What I'm going to do is go to the materials room, and you'll see here those material groups we created earlier now exist, bands and pipes. So we'll start with the bands, and we'll just give them a, we'll start with just like a bright blue texture just to show you how this works. And you'll see over here they change blue, and then the pipes, give them a yellow, and you'll see they changed yellow over here. Now you can get a little bit more advanced than that. We'll actually go to our material selector here, and now I've got tons of materials here. Let's see if I can just find the basic materials for now. Well, we pick all sorts of stuff. Here we'll do wood for the pipes. And let's make that brighter. And I don't think I have any materials for the bands. I might have something floating around. I don't know. We'll just make them leopard print. A little bit silly, but oh, undo that real quick. I changed the wrong thing. Change the bands to our leopard print material. Like I said, it's a tiny bit silly, but now we've changed our materials here. We'll do a quick render, and you'll see what it looks like. And here's our pipes rendered with the wood and leopard textures. Like I said, it's a little bit weird. They're just what I picked from real quick to demonstrate how you can use those material groups that we created back there in Blender. So with that, I think we'll call it a day, and maybe we'll use these pipes sometime in the future to do a little bit of a more elaborate project. So thank you, everybody, and good night.